Welcome. I'm Carl Frederick, and I will be interviewing individuals for Kenosha Voices, an oral history project of the Kenosha County Historical Society in conjunction with Kenosha Community Media. I have worked in newspapers for more than 40 years as an editor and a reporter. 38 and a half of those years were at the Kenosha News. I am also a member of the Kenosha County Historical Society Board. We hope you enjoy these programs. I'm speaking with Juan Torres, a longtime Kenosha resident. I'd like to talk to you, Juan, about your Spanish heritage. How did you come to Kenosha?
Well, during the early 70s, I came to Kenosha was my brother invited me. He was working at the time. He was working on Racine with Bell City. He was a welder, and I used to give him a ride to his work and then come back if I had to use the car. But I came during the winter once, and I came during the summer once. And I liked both climates. But then after that, I came in '76 to stay. Maybe a couple of months, a few months, I started working with the Spanish Center. And that took me for a couple of years.
And what did you do for the Spanish Center?
The Spanish Center, I was the outreach worker.
Okay.
So either I would work a little bit in the office, but I would have to go out and make home visits or fill out applications of some sort, either for the services. We used to give out vouchers for food or whatever. So I was doing that particular job, making sure that the applications were filled right and making sure everything was going smoothly with the general operations of the business.
Okay. And after you worked at the Spanish Center for a couple of years, where did you go from there?
From there, I went to work with UMOS. Actually, both of them were at the St. Andrew's Church on 26th and Roosevelt. The Spanish Center was the upper level, and UMOS was the lower level. There, I was called the employment specialist. So my job was to actually recruit students, families, Hispanics mostly, to have them come to KTI, which is Gateway at the time, but it was Kenosha Technical Institute at the time, so they could go to school, either learn a career, take a GED, or just go to college,
So these were students who had already gone through high school?
No, these are regular, what we call them, regular students. I mean, they had their time, and actually the program got them involved, got them registered. We did everything. UMOS did everything. We paid them a stipend to go to school, but it seemed like it wasn't enough for some of the families because the father, the parent, the male would say, I need more than a stipend. I said, I have family, I have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 children, my wife, and this is not gonna cut it. I have to look for something. So, and sometimes we, in the Hispanic population, we tend to plan, not all of us, but we tend to plan for the present. We don't look at the future. The future is out there. I mean, we'll get there because we used to tell them, well, it takes you a year or two. You'll graduate. You'll have your associate's degree, or you'll have a career in mechanics or whatever you would like. But it takes time. Mm-hmm. So we understand, but it's not for me right now. So there I stayed another couple of years with the UMOS, and then at that particular time, that's when I started working at Charmglow. Charmglow Products.
Okay.
In the same era, in the late 70s, early 80s. And I was there for a year and a half, because Charmglow is in Bristol, Wisconsin, so we had to travel. I had a few friends that would go along with me, gasoline wasn't that expensive, but it did cut a little bit into the pay. I was making $2.10 an hour, working 40 hours a week, and it was good. I've never had a job that I don't like. I got into it, and it was working with presses, making tools, little objects, metal for the grills and stuff like that. And I was there for a year and a half the most, and then I came back to the city, and I believe I started working with Humos again. And then by the late 80s, in the 85, 87, I was working with the RSVP program.
Okay, you went back to Umos.
Yeah, for a short period of time.
Yes, and what did you do that time when you worked for Umos?
I also I took the same position as an employment specialist, looking for jobs, calling the manufacturers to see if they have any openings. I would bring them and we also would pay, I wouldn't say half, but we would also help the employer with if they would hire our families or our people, and they would get half of the pay.
So you would subsidize the employer
subsidize
to help
the employer
pay
to
the
help
employee better.
Yeah, so yes, it was kind of like a temp agency.
Yeah.
They pay the employer until he gets hired, and then they don't pay nothing.
So, did you ever work with any migrants who worked on farms?
Yes, I did. I did the outreach work out there in regards to the footstep outreach program. That's what it was. It was the program, the footstep outreach, and I was the worker. We would go out to the farms, all the farms in Kenosha. Plus, when I was working with Humos in the Spanish Center, I would have to go out to the farms out in Walworth and Racine County and those that are because the office would get the calls. Oh, there's a family out in Rodinsky's farm, or there's somebody at wherever, and I would go out there and look for them, and I would find them, or some of them would live in the town like Delavan, or and I would call them if I had the number, or I would go to their address.
And you would help them with what?
I would help them inquire or give them information in regards to the food stamp program. I would fill out the applications for them, and then when the stamps were ready for them to be picked up, I would tell them, you have to go on a Monday or during the week from 8 to 2, whatever, and they would go and pick them up. And
Okay.
that's what I did with the migrant population.
Okay, then after Umos in the mid-'80s, you went to
The RSVP.
Okay.
And there I was working with the senior Hispanic seniors, trying to get them involved in the senior programs, like the nutrition program, or the the RSVP was more for volunteer purposes. Get them involved in the programs and make them volunteers, to help out the agency or help out other seniors. But I got a comment from one of the elder seniors, and he said, Juan, we were migrants all our lives. We never get paid that much. And now you want us to volunteer? I said, okay, Mr. Diaz. I said, that's fine. I understand, because I did the same work. I understand what you're saying, but this is a program, and I'm here, and we can do other things. We can help you out. He says, just because it's you, Juan, I'm going to volunteer. I'm going to join the program and try to go to those nutrition programs. And there was times that I would take them. I would eat with them and say, well, they don't have any tortillas, or they don't have this. I say, well, maybe you have to request. You have to request, and maybe they might do that. But yeah, it was fine. I was there for a couple of years. And then from there, that's when I went to Virginia.
Went to Virginia. What took you to Virginia?
Well, just to explore, I have heard about it. And I went to Virginia. I lived in Woodbridge. And then I became a shoe salesman. And then I was there for a year, and then I became the manager. So from there, they were opening stores. And from there, I went to Manassas, which is around Manassas, to be a manager, because they had built a new store there. And then from there, they built another one. And I went out to up northern Alexandria, somewhere around there, Virginia. And I was there for 2 years. It was good. It was good. It was.
Was there a strong Hispanic community there, or you just
There
went-
was. I don't think there was as much as, because Kenosha doesn't really have that much either. Maybe a little bit more than Kenosha, maybe like 30% Hispanic in the area, because it was a large area. And they were mostly not necessarily from Mexico. They were more from Puerto Rico, maybe Cuba. Because those Hispanics come from other parts because they're farther north. So from other cities, from Florida, from they all don't come from. The ones that we get here come from Mexico, and then the ones that are coming from Guatemala, they come through Central America and up to Mexico and then here. But the other ones
come through Miami?
Come through New York or Miami or Florida or from their own country. It was more of a mixture, a diverse Hispanic group. It wasn't all Mexican. Yeah.
Okay, so you worked there for 2 years.
For 2 years, and then I came back in the 90s. I left to Virginia around 87, 89, and I came back in the 90s, 90, 91, and I started working with the Alcohol and Drug Council.
Okay, was that part of another department, or was that its own unit?
That was his own unit.
Okay.
I mean, the Alcohol and Drug Council was and then I got the position of the Frank Neighborhood Project Director.
Okay.
So because we were again trying to get the Hispanics involved, trying to get the people motivated, trying to get them encouraged, trying to get them, and also with the other side of the coin was the prevention of drugs and alcohol.
Okay.
Besides education.
Okay, so when you came up to Kenosha to stay permanently, where were you in your education?
Well, I had about 60 credits to my name when I
60
came.
credits after high school?
After high school.
Okay.
And I was going to Our Lady of the Lake University, well, it was college then, in San Antonio.
Okay.
But it was a situation that I was going through, and I just...
You were thinking about now, not the future.
Right. So it was, I came here.
Okay.
And my brother called and he says, come on, there's work. So I came.
Right.
And
then in 1991, you were working for the Alcohol and Drug
working
Council.
for the Alcohol and Other Drug Council.
And did you go back to school?
I went back to school because the director told me, he says, Juan, you have credits to your name. What if you want to go back to school, we'll pay for it, but your grades have to be up there. I said, sure, I can do that. So I joined UW Parkside, and in '96, because I was just going to school in the evenings, part-time, and so I got my bachelor's degree in '96, December of '96. And there was about 3 credits that I had left, and I said, I gotta take them. I have to take a full class, a full load, because I didn't want to come back the following year for only 3 credits that I needed. I said, no, I'll just take a full load, and I did very well. I graduated that December in '96 with a bachelor's in sociology. Sociology, that was my study of people, study of societies.
And that's what you were working in.
And that's what I was working. I didn't want to be a social worker because when I was working for this food stamp program, that was the welfare department, I didn't want to be a caseworker. That was the one side of the spectrum. I wanted to show them something else, and that's why, I felt that education was important, and I have to finish this because, I could recall my dad, he wanted me to finish school, whatever school I was taking. Because when I was working in the field, he says, you have a choice. It's either education or field work. What do you want? I said, I'll take education.
And did he have any advice for you or any sayings he used to tell you about?
Oh, yeah. He used to let me know about, there was a few, and I still remember, muchacho malcriado donde quiera tiene padres, an unruly child has a parent everywhere he goes. Or the other one was, whatever you do with your parents, you will find in your children. So you have to be nice to your parents. You have to be respectful. And you know, even if you go to Texas or any part in the southern, even the young people always call you sir. Yes, sir. No, sir. They don't say, hey, you, or whatever. And that's one of the things that I always liked. You know, you have to be respectful. Unless I'm talking to a younger kid, then, you know, because in Spanish there's a tú, which is, if somebody's younger than me, I can say tú. But if I'm talking to somebody older than me, I would say usted. You know, so, or people of authority, police, priest, doctor, usted, because they're and one of the things that I've learned also, why we are the way we are is because we don't question authority. So if a child, a student, a kid, elementary, doesn't like the teacher for whatever reason, he can't. Mom and dad are going to no, she's the teacher. You have to listen to her, or you have to do what she says. You know, so you know she's, you know, I'm the teacher at home, but she's the teacher at school, and you need to listen. So sometimes that's why. So what is a child going to do? You know, kind of like, well, you know, and that's why certain things happen. Well, I don't want to go to school. I don't like school. You know, because, you know, but we don't question authority. It's something.
You find that from wherever they're from, they have that cultural.
Yeah, it's kind of how would I say it? It's like it's instructed in me.
Okay, it's built in.
It's something that
drilled into you by
right
your parents,
like
grandparents, and
like you're talking. I can interrupt you if you're a kid, if you're a child.
Okay.
You know, and I don't have to tell you. You should know. Or like when my mom would get visitors at home from, you know, la comadre, her friend, if they tell us, go outside. They don't come to see you. They came to see us. So
okay. All right. So you had finished school. You finished your bachelor's degree.
I finished my bachelor.
And that was it?
And then I went back. It was like wildfire. I went back. Well, after, almost right after, because after I finished my degree, I started working, and then from coming back and then working at the alcohol. I was there for 7 years at the Alcohol and Other Drug Council. So, and then when I finished in '96, I got a job at the Waukegan School District.
Okay.
As the bilingual consultant for IEPs.
Okay.
So during that time, I went back to school to get through an accelerated teachers program at Parkside. So I was going there while I was working in Waukegan as the bilingual consultant, and I was there for a year because it kind of took about a year and a half for my teacher certification. So what I was doing when I started at Waukegan, I was doing all my indoor class. So by the second half of the year, I was doing out, you know, the teacher's class, the classroom. So not being hired with Waukegan, then just once I got my certification for teaching, I was just transferred to one of the schools in Waukegan, and I stayed there. And then because, and I got the position as an, what do you call it? I wasn't a student teacher. I was an intern. So they paid interns. So I got paid for teaching.
Okay. And
I stayed there for 3 years with Waukegan until the summer of 2001. And then I came to, well, I was in Kenosha, but I came to teach in Kenosha because during that time I was also on the school board from '94 to '98 while I was working with Waukegan.
Okay.
Because you couldn't work in Kenosha if you were going to be a school board member. So I was still working with Waukegan. I became the school board member from '94, '98. And then once I was done, that was by after that, then I came to Kenosha and taught here in Kenosha.
And where did you teach?
I taught, the first 2 years I taught at Frank Elementary, was the bilingual program. And I had the first, second split. So first graders and second graders were in my class to make a complete class of number of students. And I was there for 2 years. From there, I went to Jefferson for 2 years, and I taught there first grade. And it was really, with Jefferson, it was a diverse classroom.
So it was
Hispanic,
anybody,
African American, and white.
Okay. But at Frank, it was not.
With Frank, it was not, nor Waukegan.
Okay.
They were all Hispanics. My first class was 30 students, my first year. And then it kind of remained the same, 28, 30, 29, but the 3 years that I was there. But, you know, I think even though they're children, I think if you give them respect, they'll give you respect. And one student said, Mr. Torres, you don't teach like a real teacher. I said, well, how do I teach? Like my dad. Because even though I taught, I would tell them the basics of life. You know, you need to behave. You can't be doing that. You know, you can't be missing school. So he makes it sound like I was their dad telling them, you better go to school, boy, or what, or whatever. But, you know, I think that's why he said that.
Okay.
Or one of the little girls comes to me and says, you smell like my dad. I said, well, I hope your dad smells good. You know,
yeah.
And that's when you have that those things come when you have that relationship with your student, because otherwise they won't say nothing.
And that way you could reach them better.
Right, because they feel like, you know, they could do that. They could ask you without having fear of anything. And I like that. I like that in myself, that I was able to do that, and I still have a communication with some of them. Some of them are lawyers or painters or, you know, but I still have a few.
Okay, so you were at Jefferson then until 2005.
2005, and then I went to Texas.
And you went to Texas.
Yeah, for 2 years.
And the reason you went to Texas?
Well, we were, my wife and I, and we decided to go to live there. The weather, you know, and we were thinking of Austin, we were thinking of San Antonio, we were thinking of, I can't remember another town close to Austin, but we ended up in San Antonio. We had a condo, we sold the condo, and we lived on the earnings for what we made on it. Because I didn't get a job until 9 months after we got to San Antonio. A job that I wanted to do. I was applying at schools, I was applying here, and I was applying there. I even worked with JCPenney for a little bit while during there. But then I never got a teaching position. I believe it's maybe because of age, or because I have my master's, I had all those
Credits and
degrees. So they said, well, we better get a young kid and pay him less, and you know, instead of paying Mr. Torres for. So I mean, that's what I thought, because you know, but I got a few substitute teaching. So I did some other substitute teaching. They would call, and San Antonio is huge, so any school that would call me, you know, I would go, and it was only one district. They have about 12 districts, but one of the districts would call me, or maybe another one might, because I applied several different districts. And I would go because I kind of knew, because I used to live there when I was going to school. So I kind of knew San Antonio.
So
it has changed a lot.
Oh, of course.
It has changed a lot.
You're talking from the 70s until
Right.
2007.
Right. Yeah, it's changed a lot.
I imagine it would. Now, you grew up near San Antonio.
Yeah, my hometown was Crystal City, and that's about 120, 130 miles southwest, like going towards Mexico.
Okay.
San Antonio is kind of like the central state.
Mm-hmm.
But I always loved to teach. You know, so not a lot of things bothered me. Whether it's a new job, well, I had to learn. I had to learn how to ask. You know, and the way I would tell some of the teachers is, I said, I teach my students like I was never taught. I tell them, you need to raise your hand. They never told me to raise my hand. you know, you need to raise your hand. Raising your hand doesn't mean you know less. If you don't raise it, you won't know. But if you raise it, you know, I can tell you. Don't wait until the end of the lesson to ask me, what was that word again? Ask me right away, you know. So you let them know, you know. Or the kids would bring the folders back, and I would open some of the folders. The parents didn't sign the smiling face, or they didn't sign the papers, because this on this side you keep, on this side you bring back. I said, Juan, how come you didn't? Oh, my mom was busy, or he was work, or she was sleeping. I said, okay, that's fine. Or did you do your homework? No. Okay, well, don't. I could see that they would kind of start to cry. I said, you know what? We'll do it here. We'll all do it together. No, but we don't need to. You know, homework is more to. It's not to be responsible, to bring it back. If you finish it, you finish it. That was my idea of homework. That's fine. If you don't, well, we'll do it here. Because I know they don't have nobody to teach them at home. Parents don't know English or Spanish sometimes. And why make them worry? I said, we'll do it here, you know. But next time, you know, do as much as you can, you know, something like that.
Oh, you were in Texas for 2 years, but then you decided you had to move again.
Well, my wife and I decided that the first year I said, well, let's give ourselves another year, because we love the weather. We had just bought a house, and it's not easy to just go and then leave, you know. We have to sell it. So let's give another year, and at the same time we're planning what we're gonna do, you know, pack or leave the packs in the garage or whatever, and let's start doing, but let's give ourselves another year. If it doesn't happen, and then I did work for an agency which was called Child Incorporated, and it was an agency that had the Head Start program, and I was a parent educator for that program. And I stayed there for a year. There was good people, and there was benefits, you know, but because it was a funding position, you know, you don't get paid as much. So we decided to move back. I said, we gotta go.
Now, your wife, was she from Texas as well?
No, she's from Wisconsin.
Okay.
Oh, well, actually, she was born in Waukegan. It's kind of like the same way as me. I was born in Laredo, but we lived in Crystal City. So she was born in Waukegan, but they lived here in Kenosha. Okay. No, she's from here. She worked for the county for about 33 years, and then she's retired. But
so
yeah.
She wanted to come back, or she liked it there?
She wanted to come back because I think that's when her first grandchild was born, and she wanted to come and stay with her. I mean, get to know her granddaughter.
And you weren't getting any.
And I wasn't getting any, and she was working, because she worked for the county. She knew some of the legalistics, so she was working for lawyers down there, but it was part-time, you know. And then, you know, where we lived, my office was in downtown, so that was about 25 miles. It wasn't the mileage, it was the traffic. So if I wanted to get there on time, I had to leave like an hour ahead.
Wow. In
order for me to get, and coming back too. And that thing happened the same when I was in Virginia. When I was a manager, I would rather leave, even though I was off at 5, I would rather leave, I would go to a movie or something, because it was going to take me 2 or 3 hours to get home because of the Beltway. I said, I can't do this. So it was a little bit of everything. The traffic, you know, the weather was great, but there was, you know, it wasn't the jobs that we had, and we didn't have any problems, you know. We had to, like they say, we had to live within our means, because we were both making what I was making myself when we were here. Mm-hmm. So, but we didn't complain. We just moved forward and keep moving.
So you came back, and when? What year did you come back?
2008.
Okay.
And when I came here, KUSD didn't want to hire me because I left. So I went to Waukegan and said, sure, come on in. So I worked there for another year. But what I loved Waukegan, but what I didn't want to do is, because, you know, you have to take a state examination. You know, for each state has their examination
for certification.
Teaching. Yeah, for certification. I didn't want to do that. I said, I don't want to do that. I don't mind going to college, but for something else. So I came back. I was visiting, and I know, I don't know if you know Pat Demas, but she says, Juan, I have a job for you. I said, what is it, Pat? She said, it's called the Even Start program. And I kind of knew because I think I had applied to that program somewhere in San Antonio. I said, yeah, I think I know what it is. I said, that's when my brain kind of started moving. I said, you know what? Because I know what it is, and if the funding is not there, I don't have a job. But I'll tell you what, I'll take it if I get because I had my teacher certification, if I get a teacher's contract. You see, Juan became more smarter. I said, well, we didn't plan for that one, but let me talk to some folks. I said, okay. So next day she calls me and says, you got it. If you want it, you can have it. You'll get a teacher's contract. I said, okay, I'll take it. When do I work? When do I start? So I started that June because they were going to shut down the program. They didn't have enough families. I think Pat said that they had about 4 families. And I said, okay, well, I'll take it. So all that summer, all I got from the data person was a list of parents and their phone numbers.
And what was your job with the Even Start?
Was a director.
Director.
Yeah,
okay.
director of the Even Start.
What did the Even Start program do?
What was that?
What did the program do?
Well, I was in charge. I was in charge of recruiting the people. I was in charge of working with the teachers because it was kind of like a Head Start program. It was like a little school. Okay. I was going to teach the ESL, English, to the families. That's one part. And their children would go to the preschool classroom. So I was kind of like the principal. So I would teach the teachers what to teach or how to teach, but some of them were already there, so they knew what they were doing. They knew the program. You have to know the program. You just don't know how. Knowing how to teach is one thing, but knowing the program is another, because there was two kind of like enrollment things. The parent needed to go to school, whether Gateway or whether there with me, and their children had to go to 2 qualifications for the parent and for the child. They had to go to preschool there, or if they were going to the real Head Start, that was okay too. They had to be going to school, both of them, either Gateway or with me. So, I mean, you couldn't leave your child and go shopping. Mm-hmm. You had to come to school. When your child was in school, you had to be in school, because that was the
program.
That was the program. The fidelity, what they call it. That was the fidelity. You have to go, and so I was there 7 years.
Okay.
I moved. My first year was at Zola. My first 3 or 4 years, and then the last 3 or 4 years I was in Brass.
At the Brass Community School?
Because the principal moved to Brass, and then about maybe a month or so, he says, Juan, you want to move over? I said, sure. I have a room for you. So see, that's always has been my history, that somebody is looking out for me. And that's why, in regards to racism or discrimination, I know it exists, I know it's there, but I have never experienced it. No. That's why I have to look at it. I have to look at the situation differently. And somebody might call me something else. Oh, you're making it sound like there's no problem. I said, there is a problem, but I never experienced it. So how can I tell you? If I've never experienced it personally, I know it exists. I've seen it, black and white. I mean, if you live in Texas, you see it, and you study it. I mean, I have the Mexican-American Civil Rights Movement. It's all there. Why shouldn't I know?
It's just that you have never personally experienced
I have never personally experienced, so I can't tell you. I can't really tell you what I don't know. Because we say we tell of what we know only.
So did students or parents say, well, if you don't know about this, how can you help me? I mean, did anybody ask you
No,
that?
no. Because most of, you see, because what was happening, Carl, is that I was doing the work that they were talking about.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You might be talking, because sometimes I tell other people, you know, we usually talk about community, a lot about community, but we don't talk a lot to the people. I was talking to the people. They were talking about community.
But
You know what I
not
mean?
getting down to the individuals
Right.
who made up the community.
Right. I mean, only the leaders get informed, and that was always my pet peeve. How come it never comes down? I mean, yeah, you invite me. We all leaders have meetings and we talk about whatever, but it never gets down to the people.
So have you ever been involved in any organizations advocating for dealing with discrimination or
I have gotten involved going to meetings, but I'm not a member of any organization.
Why is that?
Especially not. There's some that I do. For example, I belong to the YMCA. I belong to the Alka Outreach Center. I belong to those that are really working with the people. Some say they are, but I don't see it.
So you've made your own way through that by dealing yourself with
Independently.
other people
Yeah.
to accomplish the same thing that the others talk about in meetings.
Right. I'm doing it, and they're talking about it.
Okay.
And that's what I like. And I don't like, I don't like to be up in the limelight. I rather work on that side, and all the people I know are the families.
So you worked for Even Start
For 7
for
years.
7 years, which would have put you from 2015 until 2021.
No, 208,
Oh, 208?
208 to 215.
Okay.
Or 315, because that's when yeah.
Okay, so
Yeah.
then in 2015, you
I
did.
became school administrator
Okay.
from 2015 to now, 21.
Where
Then
were
I
you
retired.
where were you a school administrator?
I was at the main office.
Okay.
Yeah, central office. But I was still working with families, children, teachers. I was given staff development information, cultural diversity, all those kinds of programs to instill that in the teachers or the principals or the schools on what we have to be doing in order for us to reach the population. But it hasn't changed much. We're still asking the same questions.
Is there any progress being made if you're still asking the same questions?
I think there's little progress. Because sometimes, like we were talking about resources, the resources are there, but if you don't inquire, they're not going to tell you.
Okay, so you have Hispanics, you have the students in school,
Yes.
you have parents,
Yes.
and you also say there are resources available to the students
In
and
general, yeah.
and to the parents as well.
Right.
But there is a barrier.
There's somewhat of a barrier.
Okay.
There's-
So you don't think that Hispanics want things given to them?
They don't.
Okay. What do, in your experience, what do Hispanic children and parents want?
I think they don't know what they want.
Okay.
I think, but you see, I'm not for either side, whether it's the parent or let's say let's say the school district and the families. I see myself as a mediator.
Okay.
You gotta, the parent,
You
have
know
to do
both-
you
you
have
know
to do
both
your
sides.
part,
Okay.
And you have to do your part. And you have to connect. You have to find a way on how to bridge that gap. If you can't, or if you won't, then that's what you need to work with. And if you can't, and if you don't, the same here. It goes for the same because, some let's say Kenosha, the district is working very hard to get the parents in. And the question is, how can we get the parents in? Well, the parents are not going to come. And I was telling it to some other people the other day, is that if I'm illegally here, if I don't have no insurance, if I have never been invited, if I have never been whatever, with that thinking, am I going to get involved? And a little example, one of my friends is having a baby shower, but it's for women. And it's somebody that I've known as a student, and she's a nice girl. And they invited my wife. And my wife was saying, well, why should I go? I'm not her friend. And just to make an example is that, and that's how people are. Why should I go? They never invite me. Why don't you go? Or even at the school conferences. Anda tu vieja? That's what the husband said. You go, woman. Why do I have to go? Instead of saying, let's both go. Because we're both the parents.
So,
but that's the perception. That's their mind. That's their culture thinking. And if we as a community or leaders or whatever don't change that perception, don't change that mindset.
and you mentioned earlier about students not
It's always gonna
raising
be the
their
same.
hand or asking
Right.
a question. You're suggesting that on the one side, the parents can't wait to be invited. They have to ask to be let in. They
Yeah.
have to reach out and say, I'm here, open the door, or something.
And if they do that, are you ready to take it?
So is that something about Hispanic
Is that
culture?
something? Well, that's something about what's going on because, if parents get involved, if parent wants to get involved, get encouraged, everything, are you ready for them? Is the district ready for them? How are you going to deal with them if they want to get involved, if they want to do this? So in a sense, it's like, oh, I'm glad they haven't gotten involved. You see, it's the both start on both sides, It's real life. And that's the way I see it. I see it as real life. I mean, things can happen. If you want to do it, it will happen. It will happen. You'll find a way on how to do it. I mean, that's the way kids work.
What you're saying is doing it. Go do it. Don't say it's not working or I need
Yeah.
something. Do it.
Yes. Okay, we've talked enough. Let's go and do it. Okay. And that's what I used to tell some of the people at the district. Okay, we have enough information. It's kind of building a building, a house. We have enough information. We have enough material to start building something. Let's just build the foundation. So people can say, oh yeah, look at that. They have that beautiful foundation. So something's going up. But we don't start building nothing. We get informed, how long are we gonna get informed? How long are we gonna get trained? Before we do something? It's the same thing.
Do you think the Hispanic community is tired of waiting for something to be built?
I think the population in general, but yes, especially if they don't know.
Okay, I'm sorry. You were with the district until 2021.
Right.
Okay, then what did you do?
I retired.
You retired. Okay, but what are you doing in retirement then?
Well, I'm still going to several meetings. I belong, like I said, to various organizations that we meet in the evening. Some are virtual, some are in person. Now I'm teaching part-time with Gravano Elementary. I love that. That was part of my life. I feel better when I go and work with the kids and I see them. And I still am the same teacher even though I'm not the teacher, but they all come to me and
Do you still deal with parents?
I still deal with parents. Like today, they call me, Mr. Torres, can you come to the office? There was a parent that she says she's dropping the kids off, but they're not coming to the classroom, and they're counted late, but because of the language barrier. So they call me and says, this lady. So I told them, I said, yeah. I said, she even has a question as to why they're not in, because she drops them off. Well, she needs to drop them a little bit earlier. They come in at 7:20, so she needs to make them be there. Not at 7:20, she needs to get them there like 7:18, 7:15, 7. She says, well, yeah, but if I bring them too early, they tell me not to bring them too early because they're gonna be outside. I said, well, I'll tell you what, since I've been working here for so many, bring them like 3 minutes before. You see, I'm telling them the answer. And that's what we need to sometimes, give the parents the answer. They're not taking a test. Give them the answer. Like that example that I gave, if you buy a refrigerator, if you bring it home, it doesn't work, are you gonna keep it, or you're gonna call
the store,
the Lowe's? Yeah. Well, I'm gonna call. Well, they're saying I'm gonna call the store, but are they? No. Well, I don't know. I just bought it. And sometimes I have that thing too. Like we're paying our HOA, and HOA is charging $9 to have it auto pay, and my wife says that's too much, Juan. And I was telling my wife, I said, do you think I should call and let them know that we want to pay by mail instead of paying the $9? She says, when she doesn't want to hear, she says, it's up to you, Juan. Whatever you want to do, you do.
Okay,
but that's the same. I'm comparing those thinkings. My thinking with him, it has nothing to do with me, but those are the thinkings that's still there. Well, maybe I shouldn't pay. Maybe I don't care. What's $9? You want to pay $9 because you don't want to call? You want your child to suffer because you don't want to talk to the principal? Or go and let him know what your child is going through? But some of the parents that I've taught before, they're all learning that because they've called me. Mr. Torres, this is what's happening. What do you think I should do? I said, you know what? Don't think about the other child. Think about your child. What do you want to do with your child? You don't have control over the other family. So I give them that, oh yeah, you're making sense. Yeah. Because what is it that you want to be solved with your child, right? You're not going to resolve the other child because there's nothing you can do there. You don't have control. So you give them the answer. Well, this is what you need to do. Oh, okay, that's why I like to call you, because you're sincere and you tell us what we need to do. And when parents used to come and say, I said, don't be surprised if I'm telling you the same thing the principal told you. But maybe I'll tell it to you in a more calm or friendly way, but I might tell you the same thing. You know what, you can't move your child because your address is different or whatever,
Sure. Do you see any difference in the people who have come up here when you came up here and around that time, between those and people who are coming up from countries south of the border today?
There's not much difference, but the only difference that I could say is some of us are more willing to work, willing to do, willing to study. Some of those people that are coming from other countries, I see them as more encouraged to study, to learn English, as opposed to myself as a Mexican American, born in Texas. I said, no, I got everything. All I got to do is, and work less, or know the way around. And the other people that don't, that come from other countries, are more encouraged to find out about everything, or get to know, or more curious. I want to go to class. Yes, I want to learn. And some of them have, businesses. Most of the Mexican restaurants that are up here in Kenosha, those are from people not from the United States. How do they do it? I even question, I wonder how they got it, how got their business set up. They know something. They know somebody. My friend, one of my friends is a lawyer from Mexico, but because she doesn't know the English language very well, you know, she knows English, but she doesn't know it like we do, but, you know, or because of the legalistic matters of her job. But she was always moving. She wrote a book, a children's book. I never read a children's book. But you see how they are. Those are the
people who are coming from other
some
countries.
of those, yes, some of those. We don't know them.
They're not necessarily what some people describe.
Right.
You see them
right.
as people who want a better life,
right,
want education,
right,
want to work.
Right.
But,
and I think if we were more upfront as government agencies or whoever, or employers, say, hey, come, we'll work on the other stuff later. I know you know how to paint, or I know I know you're a plumber from Mexico. You don't know too much English, but you know how to do it. For this part, you don't have to know English, because you know how to fix up the pipe and put. You know, we gotta see that. And as a teacher, I always try to see the talents of others. Even other parents. Hey, you know how to do that? Yeah, sure. You wanna help me to do this or to the. You always looking for the positive. You're always looking for the talent. You're always looking, you know, for that. Not the negative. Not the, you know. You're always looking for something that is going to help you.
Do you see single parent families as an issue for Hispanics?
Well, single parents is hard, and I see it. You know, it's more common than it used to be, but if it's working, you know, it's like there was a quote that I used to say, you're part of the team, not part of my stress. I mean, if there's gonna be stress with that husband or that wife, you might as well go. I mean, Hispanics are very close to religion, Catholicism, God, but they believe a lot in suffering. I don't like to suffer. You know, I'd rather be obedient and obey the rules and do as, you know, obey the government, obey this and that. But, you know, many families are into, that's changing. More going to the non-denominational, but more of them are Catholic, and Catholic comes from, you know, the quinceañera, the 15-year-old bride, the weddings, you know, all those things that they have a great part of, and they believe it, you know. They wouldn't believe that a priest would do anything wrong, you know, or the Pope is who he is, but because of their deep beliefs of Catholicism, and then they believe in, you know, healings. Like when we was a kid, we would rub us with an egg and crack it and open it and put it under the bed. It was a little toothpick in form of a cross. And if the egg got, then, you know, if the egg got whatever, well, the egg was going to get that way because it was out in the, but that wasn't the belief. The belief was if he was bad, that the curse or whatever was out, or the brushes, you know. That's why not the insurance. We got the curandera, we got the healer. Why do we need a, you know what I mean? Like those people that believe in praying that my child doesn't have to go to the doctor because we're gonna, you know, that kind of belief. So those are strong beliefs that we have, and they're stronger than anything else. And the God's will. Well, God's will is that maybe I shouldn't be this. Yeah, but okay, but that's how they believe.
So you still are the teacher. You always wanted to be a teacher?
I always wanted to be a teacher. I always wanted to be the teacher to teach them things that they didn't know, or they had any questions, or and I still do it, even though I'm not the teacher, I'm the assistant. But the teacher allows me to sometimes say something to the kids, you know, about whatever math or or because this month is Kindness Week, and they're showing them videos of how to be kind and show them those, and that, I said, and this particular video shows on how giving is. I said, and this man was feeding the hungry. He says, you know what, your teacher's doing the same thing. He's feeding you. He's not feeding you food, but he's feeding you knowledge. And you have to respect your teacher.
And you see that happening today?
Yeah. There's kids today don't have any respect, but you have to show. You see, that's why we have to give them, even though not the same, but in a different way that they can recognize, oh, Mr. Torres said, I'm sorry. Or Mr. Torres said something, that made, he's different. And that's what the kids need to see, something different from their teacher. Because sometimes when I was teaching, I would wear a tie. Because, I'm not gonna dress like the student. But that has nothing to do with clothing. It has something to do with, I'm the teacher. I need to be different.
Do you think there's been a lack of respect of the children for their parents, more so than it used to be?
Less?
The children don't have as much respect for their own parents as there used to be? Or do you still think that bond is strong?
I think that bond is strong, but I think it has been allowed by the parent.
So sometimes if they aren't respected, then
and sometimes, I've heard it some years ago when I was working with the Alcohol and Drug Council, and we would go to other ethnic groups like the Hmong people and all those, and they were saying something like, the parents would get mad at their kids, upset at their children because they were always talking in English, and the parents didn't know what they were saying. You see, language could be also and there's people that would say, well, talk English, don't talk Spanish, because I might feel that you're talking about me. I said, lady, if I was gonna talk about you, I wouldn't tell you in Spanish. But they don't understand that. I don't know. You see, it's a different world. It's hard. It's hard, and you have to. I guess you have to watch what you say and how you say it. It's more likely how you say it. Because I get students right now that and they're not okay. These children are. Don't touch me. Leave me alone. I said, I'm not even touching you. Get away from me. This is our first grader. I said, well, I don't know. Poor teacher. I'm only the assistant. You see that you see how we go, or how we do it? I'm only the assistant. So
you say children need to respect their elders. They need to know what there is and how to get it, and then go ask for it, go reach for that, and they'll be successful.
And sometimes give them the answer. They're looking for this is the answer. And especially the parents, they need the answer. They don't give them a quiz, don't, because if you want to help them, and even though I knew it, I learned that when I was teaching GED to the parents. I want to make it easy for them, because they say that a good teacher makes something difficult easy. And a bad teacher makes something easy difficult, when teaching.
So when you say sometimes you give them the answer, that doesn't mean that it's all over. That answer might just tell them what they need to do next.
Right, and they might forget, but that's why you give them the answer. This is the way to learn is this. The way to take notes is this way. And still ask. I'm not gonna get mad if you ask me again. You need to ask me. This is the time. Make sure you prepare. Call me. Do whatever you need to do so you can, or when I'm teaching. Well, you know, it's not a test because we're practicing, we're teaching. I'm going to give you I'm going to give you the insight. I'm going to give you the way on how to pass the test. I'm going to give you this. I'm going to give you that. I'm going to give you all the answers. But you got to put them in perspective. You still got to study, you know. Otherwise, you know, we're going to be floundering all over and say, well, I don't know.
Well, thank you for talking with me today.
Yes, sir.